Welcome to Small Biz Life, episode 155, Shared Responsibility. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Small Biz Life. I'm Kristin Ingram.
And I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And
kind of deja vu-y.
And we wanted to talk about a question that we get quite frequently from people. How do we do all of this that we do? So in case you don't know, we own two businesses. I own a CPA firm, which Jeff helps me with. We own Ingram Digital Media, which is the company that owns Small Biz Life. We also own two other brands, Accounting in Focus and Gardual. So each week we're producing two podcasts out of that business, multiple websites, YouTube content, paid content. And so there's a lot, plus I also run a master's program at a local university, and I teach tax courses there. And we have our 8-month-old son, Eric, who is with us while we are trying to do all this stuff. So people ask, how do you do this? It's funny because they're calling me Wonder Woman now at the university. And
that's pretty much for what you do there.
And that's for what I do there. Yeah, they're not really aware of all the other stuff that I do. So we wanted to take some time and kind of go behind the scenes and tell you how we do all this stuff. I will tell you, it doesn't run as smoothly as it sometimes looks from the outside.
Which might be more apparent if you're watching this for the second time.
Right. So, we have systems issues. We don't always get everything done that needs to get done, but I think we have a really good system for getting lots done. Okay. So there are two methods that you could look at, I think, when you're looking at responsibility sharing. So the first one is, and this is kind of, I think, what most books teach, most, kind of systems I've seen, where you sit down and you make these lists, right? And even this is one thing that I disagree with in the Baby Wise book. They said, make a list of everything that you do, and then what is mom going to do and what is dad going to do? That's a system.
Yep.
My problem with that system is that when things don't get done, the other person gets pissed off. Right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, it becomes a scorecard.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It becomes, what is she doing versus what he's doing.
And also, I think, too, sometimes some of the activities don't get valued correctly. It's especially if you have someone working out of the house, if they're working 8 or 10 hours out of the house, that's a thing. That's one checkbox. And so, it's not very equivalent sometimes, or, take care of the kid while I'm at work, it's like a checkbox, so there are sometimes some really big things that get put into a very small thing on the list. And somehow, the scoring of it ends up being, well, okay, you took care of the kid when I was at work, but, you forgot to do the dishes on Thursday.
Yeah. And that ends up breeding a lot of resentment. There's a lot of fighting involved. And so I'm not a big fan of that method. What we do is we call it's shared responsibility. So we have a master list of everything that has to get done. And there's different ways we've done this before. We've kind of done a checklist on the refrigerator. But now at this point, we just kind of know these are the things that we have to get done to keep the house moving. And so it's kind of become habit at this point. But essentially, we operate as a team, right? So there's Team Ingram, and there are 3 of us on the team. Eric isn't super helpful in the team right now, but he sleeps when we need him to, so we can do things like record the podcast. So, but what that allows us to do is whoever is available to get things done gets the thing done.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not about who has the most check boxes. It's about the team winning. And it really takes like a shift in mindset, right? Because you have to think of your organization, your household as a team.
And I think too, you kind of also have to prioritize as a family what's most important to what's least important as well. Because I think, it's like sometimes even, with both of us working really hard and getting a lot done, and neither one of us are sick, and we're in that week where things are just being checked off, everything gets done plus some. But in other weeks, like last week and the week before, when we had the plague going through our house, it didn't necessarily work that good because both of us were really getting done what we thought were essential tasks.
Right, which at that point was kind of like eating, sleeping, feeding the baby,
reading.
Reading to the baby, making sure he was playing. Yeah, that's about all that got done in that week and a half, I think, because we were like, everybody was sick. But, the nice thing with this model, though, is it doesn't matter, who's busy and who's not busy. It's, even in our business, we do this. So, it's like we were just talking because, we're behind now with, we recorded the show on Wednesday and we were having internet issues. So we actually are re-recording this on Sunday. And so we're looking at, okay, I'll help you with the show notes if you do the editing, and we'll make sure that we get the show out, because ultimately Team Ingram needs to win.
Yes.
And so when you look at it that way, I think that helps with a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Right? Whether that's in your business, whether that is in, your family, your home life. And I personally think that it makes everything happier.
Yeah. So do I. I mean, even before when, Kristin, had her business and I was working, we'll say 40 hours a week, whether or not that was true. But, I was working several hours daily outside of the house. And, but still, I would help her out with her business. I could actually brainstorm problems I was having at work with her. She could help me. But it's the idea that ultimately it's us versus the world. And, and that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think when you have that mindset, because I know a lot of people are worried, like going to this sort of system, that the other person is not going to do anything. This is a mentality that we have in our house. And I think that's why it works.
Because you both do need to opt in to the mentality for it to work.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to talk about some things, some steps that you can take to help make this work. But buy-in is critically important. Like, you have to buy in that we are a team and we want the team to win. And so for the team to win, our businesses have to be successful. Our home life has to go smoothly. Everything has to work. So when you think of it that way, that's like, I think that's the first key, right? This can't work if you're trying to drag your spouse along. Okay. Because the key to this is that when somebody in the house sees something that needs to get done and they have the time to do it, they do it. So like, I'll give you an example. So this morning, we like to empty the dishwasher in the morning. So I finished breakfast. Jeff took a shower while I was making breakfast, and we knew that we had to record this morning. And Eric was asleep. So I went to go put my plate and I was going to empty the dishwasher. And Jeff said, I'll do that when I'm done editing my show. You go take a shower so that we can, so that Team Ingram is ready to record. Those are the kinds of things that happen in our house automatically. Jeff normally does laundry, but if I know Jeff's really busy trying to get, content out, I'm going to step up and do laundry because I've got the time to put it in, or I've got the time to turn over the laundry and he's busy doing something. So it's, you have to be aware of, kind of what's going on in your house, in your business, in your life. and what's going on with your spouse or your significant other as well. Right. That's really important. So you have to be like aware. You can't have your blinders on saying, oh, that's not my job. That's somebody else's job. You can't do that.
Getting done.
Exactly. So if the trash needs to get emptied and you walk by it 14 times because that's not your job, you're not playing on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And one of my rules of thumbs is when it's something like the trash, or typically not the trash, because I usually try and get the trash, but like, the garbage disposal, where if there's stuff in the sink and it starts to build up, if I get annoyed, instead of continuing to be annoyed, it takes 30 seconds and I just put stuff down the disposal.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the few things that actually annoyed me about the house.
And I'm getting better with that now that I know that. So that's another thing too, is that if you know that there are things that annoy the other person, either in your life or in your business, try to take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Try to be the person that says, I'm not going to leave stuff in the sink because I know that bothers the other person. And have systems in place to deal with it, right? So we actually have a bucket on the side of the sink, and we put the extra
dishes,
silverware holder in there, right, for the dishwasher, and we put the dishes in there, and we put the silverware in that little holder thing so that we can just pick it up out of the bucket, and when we empty the dishwasher, put it in. Little things like that, make a really big difference. So buy-in is the first thing to making this work. I think the second thing is acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And by acceptance, I mean that if you're going to, if it's all about the team, you have to accept that the person, the other person may not do it the same way you would. Okay. Or if your kids are involved in this, that your kids are not going to do it as well as you would.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, when they're really young, and they're doing stuff for the first time, you probably don't have to redo it, but it helps give them practice so that they can get better at doing things. Like years ago, I would do inventory for my father when his business where he worked at inventory, and we were supposed to count and write the number on, and then my dad would do what was needed on top of that. And I'm sure there were many times, like as a young, like toddler kind of kid, or preschool kid, that it would get screwed up and he would probably have to fix it. But ultimately, we became better at helping him out, and he got to do some of that stuff at home instead of having to spend, a weekend or whatever, however long it would take to do to inventory his warehouse.
Yeah. And I remember when our nieces lived with us, we made a game out of putting the silverware away.
Mm.
And so that was that was the way that they would help us. We had a little step stool, and mind you, it took longer, right? Because we're taking out the step stool, and they're looking at all the spoons and matching it up and pputting them in. And I think Lily at that point, I think she was maybe like 4.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4.
4 and 3, I think,
And she was, but the thing is, you're instilling in her that you're helping the team, right? So you're helping clean up the kitchen. This is, a really valuable thing that you can do. It's awesome that you're helping. And so, yes, it took time, but eventually she got really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then as she got older, she kind of knew like, hey, I'm helping out too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's a really cool thing to instill in your kids, but you've got to understand that, they're not always going to do it the same way you do. They're not going to do it as well as you do.
Mm-hmm.
But if unless you want to do everything yourself and do it with a smile on your face and not get pissed off at the other person, you have to accept that things are not going to always be done the way you want them to.
Are they good enough? And that's ultimately the thing that you're looking for. Right.
And I think that also goes too for, if you have somebody mow your lawn, or you have somebody who, who cleans your house, they're probably not going to do it exactly the way you want it done. They may not do it up to your standards, but is it better than you doing it? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And you can give feedback, right? But accept.
Yes.
Okay. Because otherwise you're going to drive yourself crazy. Okay. So that's a really big one. Okay. So number 3, it's funny because I totally got this, and this was like a light bulb moment for me. I was reading the latest edition of Parents Magazine, and they were talking about responsibility sharing, and they were advocating for the list, which I'm not a big fan of, but they were talking about how women tend to, we have a lot of things that we are thinking about, whether it is rational or not that we're thinking about them. But for example, like I'm thinking, Eric's birthday is in 4 months. And I'm thinking about like, okay, what are we going to do for his birthday? Are we going to have a birthday party? Who is going to be there? What are we going to do? Jeff's like, hi, what are we going to feed Eric in 20 minutes?
Yeah.
And
or maybe at the most, hey, are we going to enter what's the new food coming up this week that we're going to introduce?
Right. And I'm thinking about like homeschooling and what curriculum we might use, like like women, we do this, right? We have a whole bunch going on in our brains that we are trying to manage that guys just don't think about. We're thinking about, the insurance that renews in 6 months and, are we going to get new quotes or are we going to stay with the company that we're with? We are like long-term thinkers. And so I think that that's something that men need to understand, is that we kind of have all these brain tasks going on,
mm-hmm.
and it may not, it may look like we are not getting as much done, but like behind the scenes, like I'm ordering car seats from my smartphone and,
mm-hmm.
and things like that, that I think sometimes our spouses don't necessarily see.
Don't even realize. Yeah.
Right. Like all the things that we're making happen in
mm-hmm.
the background. Interesting conversation to have with your spouse.
Yeah, I think too, that kind of works both ways, because there's other things that men are focused on too, that they find important and maybe they're even dealing with and you don't know about. And I definitely think women are more that way because they're thinking further and longer out. Sometimes guys are just doing things that they see at the moment and maybe before it gets realized by the other party. So there are definitely these things that go back and forth that don't work, that don't get caught or counted if you're doing the list system.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's another reason why I'm not a big fan of the list system, because if I had to list everything that I was doing behind the scenes so that I could check it off,
mm-hmm.
It would be excruciating, I think. So
ultimately, does Team Ingram get done when it needs to that week? Does it have to work a little bit on Sunday? That's what's important.
Right. But, it's like, I think sometimes, guys don't realize, like, if a woman is sitting there and she's on her computer, maybe it's because, she's looking for deals or looking for coupons or trying to, put together a meal plan. And those things don't necessarily get recognized.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, because the coupons would never happen if it was up to me.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I do. Like, I have to get all organized to go to BJ's before we go,
mm-hmm.
Which is like, it's a warehouse club. I know they don't have them all over the country, but it's a warehouse club out here and they accept coupons. So I got to make sure like I've got my plan, and I've got, sometimes it looks like I'm playing on my phone, but I'm actually like putting coupons into apps, so that way. And like last time we went, we saved like $35 in coupons. So, little things like that, don't necessarily get recognized because you're not up like cleaning something or putting something
mm-hmm.
away or folding something. So I think it's kind of good to have that conversation. It's like, do you ever, have you ever thought about the kinds of things that we each do behind the scenes, right? That the other person, and like acknowledge that and celebrate it. And don't have the conversation like, hey, do you realize like all the crap that I do,
mm-hmm.
When you're not paying attention? Don't have it like, don't do it that way, but have the conversation from the point of view that, I bet that there are a ton of things that I don't even notice you do. Like you automatically take out the trash and I don't even notice it, or,
you notice it when I forget it.
Yeah. But, it's like one thing that Jeff does, which is amazing. Jeff wakes up every morning and feeds Eric when Eric wakes up. So I can get a little bit of extra sleep. That is one thing he does, which is amazingly awesome. And he does it every single morning and he never complains. And I wake up, he sometimes he wakes up to the, the hangry baby, who's like, I just want to eat, bah. And like,
Sometimes you wake up briefly if he's extra hangry that morning.
But like 95% of the time, I wake up to post-fed, diaper changed, happy, awesome baby.
Happy little baby.
Right. And he's just like, Mommy, I love you. The world is awesome. I'm not hungry. Yay. And like, that's one thing that Jeff does, which is just, it's awesome. And so, kind of think about, what are those little things that your significant other does, whether it's in your business, maybe they're not even really involved in your business, but they're helping you out, doing things, or things that, they do around the house. There's two ways you can live your life. You can either live your life saying, what, my spouse doesn't do what I want them to do. And, you can be pissed off about it. Or you can say, what, I am so grateful for the things that my spouse does. Like for those of you watching who are single parents, I don't know how you do it. I have so much respect for you if you're a divorced parent or a single parent, because like every day, Jeff and I look at each other and go, I don't know how single parents do this. I don't know how divorced parents do.
I mean, sometimes the simple stuff like changing the diaper when the kid's extra wiggly. I it's like, Kristin, all the arms now. We have to tie off the legs to try and get this new diaper on this little crazy man. And it's a little adventure, but it's like, how do you like take stuff from their nose, those little nose sucking devices by yourself? I don't know how.
Yeah, it takes two of us to do that with the little nose sucker device. But that's the thing. It's like, I think sometimes we get so bogged down in, my spouse doesn't do it the way I want them to, or they don't do enough, or, and I get it. Like sometimes there are marriage issues and, there are some times that Jeff and I don't get along. Very rare, but there are times we don't get along. But we've kind of chosen to say, I am so grateful for what you do because I couldn't do this on my own. I couldn't run these businesses on my own. I could not raise Eric on my own. And I am so grateful that you are here, and I love you and I love spending time with you. That is a much better way to go through life than to go through life saying, what, I'm going to be pissed off all the time and I'm going to be angry and, I'm not going to be grateful. It wastes so much energy.
And ultimately, no one's perfect. You're not perfect. Your spouse isn't perfect. Your kids aren't going to be perfect. And so if you choose to be upset every time the perfection is not achieved by other people or approach what you feel you do, you're choosing to spend your life upset. And however much your spouse helps or your kids help, especially if you try and they don't do as much as you want them to do. Ultimately, it's your choice on how you interact with the people, how you respond to it. You can't necessarily control the actions of everyone. Hopefully, if there's buy-in, they will help more. But, ultimately, the only thing you can control is how you feel. And when you choose to feel better about something, you will spend more time happy. When you choose to be more upset about stuff, you're going to spend more time upset and frustrated and anxious.
Yeah, and I think one big key to this, which we haven't mentioned yet, is mutual respect. I think that when you respect the other person, it makes this a lot easier. Right? So when you have gratitude and respect for what the other person is doing, plus the fact that when you come at things from a negative position, right? And that's what you're projecting to the other person, they're not going to want to do things for you. They're not going to want to help the team. But when you are positive and thankful and respectful, like people feed off of that, right? They like that energy. And so it is going to bring more positivity and the person's going to want to do things to help the team.
Yeah. I mean, just think about it, like if, pick something that maybe your spouse does that you don't like, maybe they're cooking I do not like cooking, and Kristin has seen me cook. I get very frustrated very quickly. It's a complete waste of my life. It's like if it takes more than 30 seconds, it's like kind of my 22-cent budget for stuff. I get frustrated because I don't like doing it. But when she's cooking, I'm in the kitchen most of the time. I may be working in the dishwasher. Sometimes we're just chatting. If I'm kind of sore, I might not do it. But I like to be in there with her, and maybe I'll grab spices for her and we can chat. But the thing is, it's, it's those moments where you can start to empathize with what they're doing for the relationship. It's like where you might not realize it if you're not even in the same room.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I think it is really funny, because you don't like cooking at all, but you always want to help me in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of funny. So I think to wrap up this episode, the thing I really want you to consider is, if you want to implement something like this, are you working as a team? Are you working together with your children, with your spouse, and say, you know what, okay, as a team, we need to get everything done. Right? So as a team, how are we going to do this? As a team, how are we going to make everything work and make our lives better?
And thinking the long term with it, it's like my kid isn't going to be great when they start helping me do the simple task now, but in a month, in 2 months, they're going to become really proficient at it, and it will start saving me time. We have to think more long term in our time, and our successes.
Well, and it's funny because even with Eric, like before we were recording this, he was kind of in bad mood. I gave him a couple toys. I'm like, okay, mommy and daddy just need, 30 minutes to record the podcast. So you sit in your crib and you be a good kid. And when he wakes up, I think he fell asleep. When he wakes up for his nap, and be like, you did such a good job and you really helped mommy and daddy get stuff done. And sometimes even like when he plays on his own, we're like, wow, you're so good at playing on your own. You're so helpful, and it's like, I know that sounds really silly because he's 8 months old, but just being positive about it, like, wow, that's awesome. That was so helpful. Now think about, like, as he gets older, hopefully that is going to, instill in him like, wow, I can really help mommy and daddy. Right. And so I don't think it's ever, they're ever too young to try to get them involved in some way in what you're doing. Even if it's as simple as, hey, can you, play in your high chair for 5 minutes so mommy can empty the dishwasher? Wow, you did such a good job. That's awesome. Little things like that, you're instilling, a positive attitude and a willingness to get, your household to help and act like a team.
And also helps you appreciate what's happening and what's going right. Because sometimes it's really easy to go, Kristin might go 90 days in a row, going back to the sort of joking thing of the sink, and nail it every day. But that one day she doesn't is the day I notice, because the thing that bugs me is when she doesn't do it, and you miss all of the times that she does do it. So if you are thankful and show gratitude, it helps your brain see the pattern of, wait, it's been 90 days. And I'm just making stuff up here. A little bit, but the truth is, when you recognize what they're doing good and reinforcing it, it helps it sink into your brain that they're doing good. And yeah, his teeth really hurt and he's going to have a really bad day and it's going to disrupt everything. But, he's a really good kid. We're so lucky. And we recognize that fact because, we're always reinforcing the good behaviors in them. It helps us remember.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hope that you will consider some of these techniques in your own household, in your own business, because it's really helped us create, I think, peace in our household and happiness in our household, and it makes us much more productive. So thank you for joining us this week. If you want to learn more about us or learn more about this episode, you can go to smallbizlife.com. And we hope to see you next week.
Woohoo.
Take care.